Hello Year 7s, I'm now going to make the next dish in a recipe book, which is a stir fry. And you can adapt this recipe as we have done with the other ones as well. You can adapt it by changing the vegetables, choose what vegetables you and your family like. You can change the meat in there, you can change it to prawns or do a veggie version. And you can also change the noodles. I'm doing a chicken one today, but if you wanted to do it, you could do it with pork. I'm using one chicken breast, and you could change that to 200 grams of pork. Try and get pork that's lean, which means it's got very little fat on it. And same with the beef, and same with same pork, lamb or beef, lean, so very little fat on it, or cut the fat off it, because the fat needs quite a lot of cooking time when you're cooking meat, and this is a very quick method of cooking. It's not going to get the fat, it's called rendering the fat down, and in some dishes it's really important. It adds flavour to some dishes, but not for a stir fry because the quick cooking time. It's better to have very lean meat, which is why chicken's perfect. You could also use prawns. Raw king prawns I think are better because you're only cooking them once. If you buy cooked prawns, you're reheating them again, they can get a little bit chewy. And also small prawns can shrink a little bit, so I would always get king prawns, either raw is best or cooked ones. And also you can also do a veggie version. You could leave the meat out completely, meat and fish out completely, or you could have it with corn chunks. You can get some stir-fry corn pieces now, or you get tofu things you can put in it as well if you want to do a vegan version. But I'm doing chicken, and I'll talk about vegetables in a minute. The noodles, first of all, sorry to say, I wash my hands before I touch anything. Wash my hands in hot soapy water, backs of the hands, in between the fingers and the wrists as well. Roll your sleeves up. Apron if you've got it doesn't matter. I've just happened to have one at home. I'm making sure the air is nice and clean, chopping boards equipment. And your vegetables are washed as well. Now when we're making this in school, I normally ask you to do the vegetables at home to save some time, but obviously you're going to be doing all that at home now, so I'm going to go through chopping the vegetables as I would in school anyway. But first of all, now I've washed my hands, I'm going to talk about the noodles. Now this is the carb element of the dish, the carbs that give you energy. I'm using egg noodles for this, that look a bit sort of yellowy in colour because that's the egg in it. Now I'm only using one strip, which is what's the recipe book. If you want to make it 2 strips you can. This is enough for about 2 people, this dish, but obviously you can double the recipes, but I wouldn't use more than 2 strips of egg noodles because it'd just be too much in the pan. I would double the meat and vegetables if you're going to add more noodles. So egg noodles, but if you prefer you could use rice noodles, which are paler in colour. Get them in packets. These are pad thai noodles, and also these are great for people if people can't have wheat, because the egg noodles are made of wheat flour, these are made of rice flour, and obviously also there's no egg in them, so it's suitable for vegans as well if you wanted a different option. But try and get the dried ones, don't get the ready to wok ones. You're going to see now, you're never going to buy them again because they're so easy to prepare. Also with the packet ones, not only are they more expensive, they've also got oil on them to stop them sticking together. I'm already adding oil to the dish, and they've got additives in them to stop them going off in the packet. So a bit like buying ready-made rice. You know, once you get to know how to cook them properly, you'll never be buying them again. So a really easy one, just going to put my kettle on while I'm talking about it, is just to cover them in boiling water. So if you do this first thing before you do your meat and vegetables, you're going to rehydrate the noodles, just literally cover them in boiling water. So get them in a bowl that's big enough and just pour the boiling water over the top, which I'm going to do now. So it's just covered over, no more than that. And you're just going to leave, just be careful with boiling water. That's why we don't ask you to be cooking on your own at home. If you're going to cook this dish, make sure there's an adult with you. I'm just going to push them to one side. And by the time I've cooked this dish, I've prepared my vegetables and meat and cooked them all. And as noodles, those noodles can be drained and they'll be ready to use. So you can just forget about them now, which is really great. And you don't have to get a saucepan out and boil water up just in a bowl or in a jug. You could do it like that. So that's the noodles underway. The next ingredients are going to be the vegetables, which I'm going to prepare my vegetables first of all. Which in school, I ask you to do these. I'm going to move my chicken out of the way actually, so I don't touch it when I'm doing the vegetables. In school, we normally ask you to do your vegetables at home because it saves some time. But obviously you're all at home anyway, so we're going to do it, I'm going to show you how to do it now, and I would be showing you how to prepare them in school in my demonstration anyway. The vegetables, you can choose what you want. In the recipe book it's a pepper, 4 spring onions, a courgette and some mushrooms, but you could change it as it says in the recipe book. You could put mange tout in there, which are sort of the flat beans. Mange tout meaning you can eat it all in French. Mange to eat and tout everything, because you don't have to take any, you don't have to peel them or anything. Sweet corn, you can use baby corn. Depends how big they are. I might sort of cut them in half through the baby corn because they can take a bit too long to cook. By the time they've cooked, everything else could be overcooked. If you use the canned sweet corn, that's already cooked. So I would just add that at the end to your stir fry if you want to add that. You could add carrot. You do carrot, again, thinly slice it like in matchsticks because it takes quite a long time to cook carrot. Bean sprouts are great, you can pour them in. But how about getting some vegetables that you can prepare? Because obviously bean sprouts, no preparation, just pour them in along with the mange too and the sweet corn. You could have green beans and you could have broccoli. Try to avoid buying the bags of prepared stir-fry vegetables. Again, they've got to have something, a chemical on them to stop them going off. And also, you show more skills, you're improving your skills if you do your vegetables yourself. I mean, that's all you've got. That's absolutely great because you're still preparing your meat and cooking it and everything. But preparing your own vegetables each time, your skills will get better and better and better, and your use of the knife will get better. So I'm going to prepare these now with the pepper. First of all, I need to cut this in half. First of all, to get the seeds out there. So again, we're going to talk about claw and bridge. So I'm going for bridge this time. I'm cutting it straight the way through. Now the seeds, some people get the knife and they cut around it like that. It's a really easy thing to do is just pull it. Just pull that off like that. I've got close to my bin here, so I'm just putting it on a plate over there. And just pull that out like that. Just pulls out. Now it doesn't matter if it's got the odd seed in there, absolutely fine. Then we're going to cut this into strips, into slices. So we're going in with claw now because I want a good grip on it. And keeping the thumb tucked back, we don't want that thumb coming out, and the fingers nice and straight, and the knife, and it's called a rock chop. So I'm just rocking the knife down, and we're getting it in thin. Try and get them even sized for even cooking, and you just keep going with stir fry. We tend to do the vegetables in strips, so if you get them all looking the same, it looks attractive, and you get them cooking at the same time. So cut them down like that, and then I'm going to get my other pepper and do that one as well. Move that to the back so so rock chop it down, and I'm pulling the knife back. I'm pulling my fingers back as the knife gets closer, so the fingers are never vulnerable, they're never under the blade, the thumb is tucked back, and I'm using this rock chop motion like that, rocking the knife like that, okay? There is another one which is tap chop, which we've talked about as well, where you chop like that, but peppers, that wouldn't go through a pepper. That would be things more like I'll show you with the mushrooms. So like mushrooms and cucumber, you could tap chop because they're a lot softer. I'm just going to get another board to put these on. Now as you see, I'm using a green board for chopping my vegetables on. You might only have 1 or 2 chopping boards, that's absolutely fine. Just make some space for my pepper over there so I can get out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if you've got haven't got different colour boards, as long as your boards are clean. I just happen to have it at home, different colour boards for different things, but I also have got a wooden board as well. But as long as you keep your boards nice and clean in between each task, particularly if you're doing raw meat, then that's okay. So courgette, now that's a little bit big for this dish. I'm just going to cut it in half. So and these have been washed, the pepper's been washed, because we're going to eat everything, we're not peeling it. If it was an onion, we wouldn't have to wash the onion because we're not eating the skin. But anything where you're eating the whole thing, you need to wash it under the tap as well. So again, I'm going in with claw. I'm just going to take off, that's called top and tailing. And I'm just going to cut this in half. So I'm going to do a bridge. So I'm going to now, and I want to cut this in slices. So it's quite big, so I'm actually going to cut it in half to make that easy to work with. Now slicing it, it's a lot because it's so wobbly. A bit we did the carrots with lentil soup because it's so wobbly. Put it that way up, and it's nice and level and it won't wobble about so much. And I'm going to cut it into slices. So I'm going down with a knife into slices, and then I mean it takes some time to do this, but if you can, and you've got the time now at home, you haven't got a rush like we do in school, you can now, if you put some of the slices together and grip it with a claw again, then go in with a rock chop and you can get nice even sized slices like that of your courgette. I'm just going to put those with the peppers because they're all going together. And same again, so try and hold them together. If you can't do that, you can do them in individual slices, that's fine. So claw and then all the way down. If your fingers get vulnerable, just move them out the way each time. It's got little sticks, and they're roughly sort of similar size to the pepper. I'll show you again with that one. Put this into 3 now, and go down. Into slices. So I'm putting mushrooms in, you can change the vegetables And you can change the heat. In the recipe, it hasn't got a chilli in it, but I'm going to actually add a chilli to mine. You can put a fresh chilli in yours, you can put some dried chilli flakes in there if you want to. Now the mushrooms, these are quite easy, so but I always take off this little bit of the stalk there, so it makes it easier. Then you can just go in with more tap chopping into slices like that. So, but if you take that off, it makes it nice and flat on your chopping board again, and then your tap chopping. I've got 4 here, it says 3 in the book, but you can do, because they're quite small mushrooms, so I'm going to do 4. But you see how I cleared my board? It would be too difficult here. I mean, you might have a bigger board anyway, but still take stuff off. It just gets in the way, and it, of course, you could cut yourself because you're having to manoeuvre the knife around as well. And it just makes it easier. It just makes life easier, clearing your board away. Now, spring onions are next. Now, these have been washed, because it's good to wash them, a bit like with leeks, because they get sand and dirt in between them. So try and give them a good wash, because it's not very nice when you come to eat a dish and it tastes a bit gritty. Now, spring onions, there's a little bit at the end, sometimes a little bit bigger, the rooted end. That's not too bad, actually. So you want to cut that off. And also, these are quite fresh spring onions. If you had some where the leaves are wilting a little bit or brown, just take off anything. It doesn't look very nice. But if you've got a nice fresh spring onion like this, that's all you need to do. Some people cut them there and they waste all of that wonderful food. But actually, you can eat all the spring onion if it's nice and fresh. So just top and tail them again. Now with spring onions, you can cut them into rings if you want to. You can cut them into slices again, like I did with the pepper and the courgette. But as I say, just clear away in between. The bits you don't want, tidy your board up. I'm going to go for speed, I'm going to go into rings. But if you wanted to, you cut them into sticks. I'm sure somebody at home can show you how to do that. And again, because it's rock chopping with spring onions, because they're quite a thick skin. So I'm going to rock chop the spring onion. So it's good to have onions, full of flavour. The mushrooms and the peppers, yes, but not as much as onions. Spring onion, the onion family. You could use leek as well, it'd be nice. And obviously we're also going to put some garlic in this and some ginger. We're going to flavour all these vegetables up. And hopefully you won't buy stir-fry sauces again, because you're going to create your own stir-fry sauce with some soy sauce and some honey. So we've got the sweetness going on, we've got the saltiness of soy sauce going in there, and you can create your own sauce. And if you change the heat if you want to, up the heat, take it out completely, add some more. So spring onions done. So I've done my major chopping. As I say, if you're in school, if you were cooking this in school, you'd be doing this at home because it just takes too long. So I'm going to put those now with my other vegetables over there. Now for my ginger and garlic, I'm going to chop these together now as well. Now it's a little bit different order to in the booklet. It doesn't really matter what you want to do. So I'm going to get all my prep done, then I'm going to do my frying. So with the ginger and the garlic, obviously garlic, it's 1 clove, that's a bulb of garlic, and we just want one of the cloves off it. And we did this with the soup, remember the way to get the skin off it? You can either do it like that, or you could get a palette knife to do it. But once you get more confident with knives, you can do it like that. Because my fat hand is not, I'm not doing that, the blade is away from my hand, so it's not going to cut me. And that just helps the skin to come off easily. You might have a gadget that helps you do that as well. This is a nice big garlic clove in there. Now ginger, it says a 2 centimetre piece. It's lovely. This is one of my favourite ingredients. I absolutely love ginger. It's a quite weird shape. That's because it's a root. So if this grows up under the ground, and it's so aromatic, it just brings such a lovely flavour. It's also really good for you. So it's used a lot in Asian cookery. You find it a lot of Thai and Chinese and Indian, obviously, a lot of bases, lots of curries. There's ginger and garlic and spices as well. It's absolutely lovely. Packs a real flavour, and it's quite, quite zingy as well when it's raw. The dried ginger that we used to make ginger biscuits and ginger cake, this is basically the same thing that just left to go dry, so it goes rock hard and it's ground up. You could also get this crystallised in jars, chunks of it in a sugar syrup that's nice to use in cakes as well. So lots of different recipes you can use ginger for. And we just want 2 centimetres. So just take off a piece of it, they just sort of roughly, a piece of ginger. Now, with ginger, if you don't cook it very often, it can go off in your fridge. If you you can actually freeze it into chunks, and you can grate it from frozen straight into dishes. That stops it from wasting so much, reduces your wastage. With a little tip there on using ginger. So getting the skin off it. Now there's different ways of getting the skin off it. You could get a teaspoon, and you could just run the teaspoon over it, and you can get the skin off it like that. If you find that easier, or the chefs just do it, you just cut the skin around it. Just keeping your fingers in claw and just cut that skin back. You don't want any of the skin, it's not very nice to eat. Now, the difference with garlic and ginger is much more fibrous, so you don't really want a huge chunk of this in your dish. So I'm going to show you cross chopping now. So I'm just going to roughly chop my ginger and garlic. And I'm going to cross chop. What I'm also going to add now is a chilli. I thought, well, actually I'm going to cross chop them all together. So I've got a lovely fresh red chilli here. It's got a little bit of a kick, so if you don't like that, you could leave it out. So with a chilli, I'm just going to take the end off it. And I'm going to cut it in half, going into bridge. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm just going to cut those seeds out there, like that, over the bin, over my bowl. I've got all my peelings in there now. And then we're going to, again, like the ginger and garlic, just chop it into chunks, like that. And then we're going to go in with rock chopping, which is basically hands on the top of the knife. This is the way we did the garlic, when you did the soup, go into rock chopping. You do this so it's nice and fine. This is what you would do with herbs as well. We cross chopping with herbs, and it just gets it nice and fine. It's not dicing, it's just chopping it finely. You keep on working. You see how we're scraping it back in? Then you can clean your knife as you go through carefully, and just then go back in again, scrape it back in again. But it takes practice, and you want it so everything is nice and fine. You haven't got a huge piece of chilli. Everybody gets a little bit then. So we've got our vegetables done. Next thing I'm going to do is get my meat done, and that's going to require a change of board if you've got one, or you're going to clean your board down really well. And I've got a red board, and in school we use red boards. Why use red boards? Well, chicken is a high risk item, as is other meats and dairy and fish and eggs. So we want to be really careful now, because they have got the highest levels of food poisoning bacteria in them. In chicken you've got Campylobacter and you've got Salmonella in there. So we need to not transfer that into other parts of the kitchen, and that's called cross-contamination. We did that in your first lesson with me. We talked about cross-contamination, so we're going to do everything we can to prevent that. You also get bacteria on vegetables as well, which is why we wash them, because obviously most of them are grown in dirt, so we want to keep them away from other things as well and get that bacteria down the sink. And not only are you going to be changing your chopping board or cleaning your chopping board if you have the vegetables on, you're also going to wash your hands. Now, when you're doing chicken, I'd like you to make sure you've got your sink full of hot soapy water, so that you can wash your hands in between. You don't go and touch the handle of the wok or a knife or anything where you've got chicken juices on your fingers. So I think that's nice and fine now. So I'm just going to leave that on my board now. I'm just going to wash my knife, because I'm going to use that knife for the chicken as well. So now I'm going to slice my chicken up. I'm just tidying up as I go along, which is a really good thing to do. Helps people out in the kitchen as well, so they shouldn't have to come and tidy up after you. You'll show that you can tidy up as well, then you get to cook again as well. So slicing the chicken, we want to cut this into thin slice, a bit like when you do the pepper and the courgettes actually. So taking if you're really struggling to put your hands on the chicken breast at the moment, then you can always get a fork and hold a fork and hold it steady, because obviously you've got to hold it in place. If you do that, it's just going to slip around. And we want it, and you have to, like a sawing action for meat, we want to cut it into thin slices, even slices, so they cook evenly. So I'm just pulling that knife back each time and cutting through the chicken. And what we can do, we're going to cook the chicken first of all, so I want to make sure this is cooked. This was going to take a little bit longer than the vegetables, and before I put the vegetables in, I want to make sure my meat is cooked. For you guys, this is a good way to start cooking, so we don't have to worry them as we put the vegetables in. Now, because I'm now going on to a different job, I must wash my hands. So in the hot soapy water, really get that food poisoning bacteria off, and obviously also dry them as well. So I've got my chicken, I've got my ginger and garlic and chilli here, and I've got my vegetables over here. So I'm good to go now. I'm just going to pick those up. All my lovely stack of vegetables there. So I'm going to get some oil in the pan now. So if you haven't got a wok, just use a big frying pan. So I'm going to put the heat on and start cooking that wok up. See my noodles in here, they've absorbed the water. I can already see they've changed, they've grown bigger as well. So it's a tablespoon of oil in your pan. If you've got some measuring spoons, use those. If not, just not too much oil. We don't want it too greasy. tablespoon is absolutely fine in there. And so the first thing we're going to do is get the chicken. Now, stirring in the pan, if you've got something like this is great. You might have 2 plastic spoons and you can do it like that. Just be careful of plastic spoons, because if the wok gets hot, then it will get hot, obviously, and you leave the plastic is going to melt. So don't leave these in. I mean, you shouldn't really leave this in actually while it's cooking, because this will get hot as well. So that's heating up nicely. I've got it on full heat. Now again, this is when you're learning to fry, stir frying or any sort of frying or cooking, it's about regulating your heat, going up and down, which is what regulate means. So if it's too high, turn it down a little bit. If it's not cooking fast enough, go up a little bit. And somebody at home might have to help you with this, because if you keep it on a high heat all the time, it might burn. I mean, you do want quite high heat for stir frying. Stir frying, actually it's more steaming than stir frying, because you can add all these vegetables in there that create steam, and that's what cooks it actually, although we call it stir frying. So I'm going to go in my chicken. Now I'm going to be really careful, I'm only touching the edge of the board and the knife handle's clean, but I'm going to go in my chicken and you can hear it sizzle like that. And I'm going to put that away so I don't touch it now, because it's got the meat juices on it. I'm going to, just in case, but I don't think I've touched the chicken, but I will wash my hands. So now I'm going to use these 2 spoons just to turn that chicken over, and straight away it's changed colour. It's got a white colour, and that is the proteins in the meat denaturing when you add heat to it. So there's lots of ways you can denature proteins. You can denature proteins by adding an acid, or you can denature them by whisking them. If you think of an egg white, that's denaturing the protein in the egg. And adding an acid, sometimes if you're making marinating fish, you can see the fish change colour by adding an acid. It's all denaturing it, and obviously makes it nicer to eat. It's safer to eat if you cook it. It makes it tastier, doesn't it? It adds flavour cooking it. So it starts, you want to cook it all the way through. So if I'm turning it over, just be careful, sometimes it can split with the fat. And what we're looking for, to know it's cooked all the way through, is to take one of the biggest bits of chicken out. We're just going to break it in half and see if that chicken is cooked all the way out. We don't put it back on the board where the raw meat was. We can either do it on the worktop or do a different chopping board, because we need to just make sure we're not cross-contaminating. Just if it was a bit raw, and we're putting it on a board that's had raw meat. Just keep turning it over. So it's deceiving, because the chicken is white all over. I mean, I could test it, but I know, I've obviously cooked chicken lots of times, I know that's not cooked all the way through. So don't be deceived because it's white all over. You have to check inside of the chicken. It doesn't mean to say it's cooked all the way through, like with all meat. But obviously some meats, beef and lamb, you can have rare. You can have a little bit pink in the middle, but never with chicken and pork. We always cook those all the way through. We never ask for a rare pork steak or a rare chicken breast. They always must be cooked 100% all the way through. But if you want your beef and lamb a little bit pink in the middle, you can not cook it so much. The prawns, if you're doing raw king prawns, they will cook really quickly and they go pink all over straight away, and they'll be much quicker. You keep on going. I've got a bit of fresh coriander to sprinkle over mine if you want to, over your stir fry after. So you could squeeze a lime over it as well, it's very nice if you're presenting it. It'll be a nutritious dish. As I say, we've got the protein in there, we've got loads and loads of vegetables for fibre and vitamins, full of antioxidants, and we've got the carbohydrates with the noodles as well. So we've got a lovely balanced meal here. It's low in fat. For the meat, we didn't have fatty meat. We've only used a tablespoon of oil, so it's a lovely nutritious dish to cook. So now I'm going to test my chicken. I'm going to take a piece out and see if it's cooked all the way through. Nice out my jaw. Stick it, and that's cooked. There's no pink inside, so I know then that's good to go. So now I'm going to add the rest of my ingredients. So I'm going to add all these lovely vegetables again. Just be careful. Don't stick it when you put them in, like all the vegetables are going in. I'm going to add my pink and garlic are going in as well. Stick those up. Then tidy up. And I'm just going to use my spoons then, or you might have something, a wooden spoon, and just turning it over in the heat for about 5 minutes. And this just depends on what vegetables you've got cooked. As I say, with carrots, really, you should only do it when the carrots have gone soft, because there's you don't want to have it too crunchy, so just keep checking the carrots. I'm pretty sure if the carrots are cooked, everything else will be cooked. But we know the chicken's cooked, that's the main thing. So you can get the vegetables how you like, really, but as long as they're soft. You want them, don't want to be raw, really. So as I say, because there's so much vegetables in there, which are made up of sort of 99% water, as they cook, they're giving, the water's coming out of them, it's giving off steam, and you can see it's steaming, and that's actually how it cooks, which is why it's healthy as well. And that's why the woks are really good to cook them in, because the shape of the woks creates the steam, and also you can get lots of vegetables in there. That's why they're used for Asian cookery, because of the amount of vegetables that go into these dishes. Keep stirring it over. With all those lovely flavours in there already, and that will be yummy as it is. But we've all got this stir-fry sauce, and in my little pot here that I did in advance, in the stir-fry sauce, we have got in here a tablespoon of soy sauce. You could use light or you could use dark. We have got a tablespoon of sauce, a tablespoon of honey. Runny honey is better for this. We have got 2 teaspoons of corn flour, which are going to thicken it up. The honey and the soy sauce are for flavour. And I've also put some water in there. So you create your own little stir-fry sauce. So you don't need to buy those sachets and jars anymore. Apart from the fact, again, like the noodles, they're expensive. They're full of additives. A lot of them have got a hell of a lot of sugar in there. Yes, it's got some honey in there, but that's natural. A lot of them have got some of the jars of stir-fry sauces can have up to sort of 12 teaspoons of sugar in there, which is ridiculous. You'd never put 12 teaspoons of sugar in this, but in the jars you don't know it's in there, so just be careful with that, because a lot of the pre-made goods are full of sugar and a lot of salt in there. So when you make your own, you know what's gone into it. It's cheaper as well. Buying these ingredients, you've got loads of different stir-fries you can make, because you've already got the base ingredients, so it's much cheaper. So I'm going to keep on going a little bit longer. Now, while that's cooking, I'm going to drain my noodles. So I've got a sieve or a colander you could use. I'm just going to drain them over the sink now. As you can see, I've only done one strip of noodles. As you can see now, they're cooked all the way through. So just loosen them out as they're ready to go in. Just break them up a little bit. Same with the rice noodles as well. They're good to go. I've got my stir-fry. Now I'm not going to put the stir-fry sauce or the noodles in till the vegetables are soft. If I put the stir-fry sauce in too early, it will burn, because they've got the honey in there and the corn flour. If you put the noodles in too early, they will stick. So just keep on turning it around until you've got nice soft, a little bit longer on there. So if you're going to present this, I'm going to put the noodles in there. You might want to serve the noodles separately. Put it on a nice plate. Get some coriander on there. I'm actually going to get the fresh lime that I talked about. I'm going to put some lime on mine as well. And with my chopped coriander. So while I'm waiting, I could chop my coriander up, couldn't I? With my clean knife that I've washed. It's got no chicken juices on there. So I'm going to have some fresh lime and some coriander and some fresh coriander. Corianders use a lot in Asian cookery. Absolutely lovely. It's my favourite herb. And just chop that. You could just tear it actually, but I'm just going to roughly chop it. Sprinkle over the top. And I'm going to have a squeeze of lime. If you roll the lime like that, it makes it more juicy when it comes out. You get more juice out of it. So I'm just going to cut that in half. So I can put it over my dish as well. I think we're just about there now. The vegetables will be soft. Lovely. So I'm going to go in my sauce and my noodles now. So sauce first of all. Give it a stir. You must stir it because the corn flour sinks to the bottom. As you stir it, because it's a starch, a corn starch, it sinks to the bottom. But as you stir it, you can create a suspension. And then we're going to add that in. And what happens when those starch grains heat up, they start to swell up in the sauce, and when they reach about 80 degrees, they pop. The starch grains, whether it be wheat or it be corn flour, they pop in that sauce and it thickens it, and it's called gelatinisation. So straight away, because that mixture was very hot, it's already thickened up and it's nice and glossy. And I'm going to add my noodles in now. I'm going to cook the noodles in that. I'm going to turn my heat off, so I don't want to, because I don't need to. The noodles are already cooked, aren't they? And I've cooked my sauce, vegetables are cooked, and I'm going to show you what this looks like now. It's absolutely delicious. So if you want to add more noodles, I've just done a less with speed. So I've got my dish now, nice serving dish. I'm just going to tip it out onto the serving dish. I've got lovely colours. So that's the other reason why I chose those vegetables, since at the beginning, is the colours. You've got the red, you've got the green, you've got different colour mushrooms in there, you've got the noodles, you've got the chicken in there. Absolutely lovely. And then I'm going to put my fresh coriander on top. And I'm going to put a squeeze of lime on top as well. Squeeze that over. And have a taste of it, really. I'm not going to do this, talk and eat. Have a taste of it. You might find you want a little bit more soy sauce on it. You might like it a little bit saltier. If you like it really spicy, you might want to put a bit of more chilli flakes on it. But I want you to send me your pictures of your delicious stir fry. As I say, if you've got a bigger family, you can double it. Just make sure you can get it all in your wok. I maybe want to do it in 2 batches. Okay, but I'm looking forward to seeing your pictures of your lovely healthy stir fry. And looking forward to seeing you back in school very soon. Bye for now, Year 7s. Bye.